Hello, and welcome to Conversations with GLF. We have with us two amazing women today to discuss a very interesting book. So, today we are discussing A Great Nicobar Journey, published by Talking Club, an imprint of Speaking Tiger. This novel for young readers is a deeply empathetic story about friendship, resistance, and fight to protect our one beautiful planet we know as home. So, we have with us a brilliant author, Tansy Troy, and Shruti from the Earth Book Club. So I'll move on to introductions. Tansy Troy is an India based educationalist, poet, performer, playwright, and maker of bird and animal masks. During term time, Tansy works as a director of performing arts at Shrewsbury International School, Bhopal, where she tours echo dramas with her dramatic troupes of young performers around theatres and festivals of India. In 2021, she conceived the Apple Press, a young people's eco journal which includes poetries, stories, articles, and artwork by both students as young as 8 years old and household names in literature. In 2023, Tansy published her first collection of poetry, Ratna Kosha, with Red River Press, and since then has had poetry, articles, reviews, and illustrations in the Hindustan Times, The Hindu, The Scroll, Punch Magazine, Art Armor, Open Magazine, The Chakar, Muse India, Platoscape, Usawa, Sanctuary Asia, and Frontline. Her verse has been anthologized in the yearbooks of Indian poetry in English 2023, 2024, and 2025, and the Tagore Anthology. In 2025, Red River published Tansy's second book of poetry with Earth as My Witness, while the Writers' Workshop published a third collection, Singing to the Humanities. This summer of 2026 sees the release of a novel for the young and passionate at heart, The Great Nicobar Journey, published by Talking Cup, an imprint of Speaking Tiger. When school is out, Tansy nests with her family of beautiful animals and a few humans in the majestic Himalayas. Shruti Sharma is a name familiar to all of you who follow green literature. She is the founder of the Earth Book Club and Books on Delhi Metro, two community driven initiatives born from a simple belief that books have the power to become both a personal refuge and a tool for collective change. Through the Earth Book Club, an Instagram based environmental literature community she started in 2021, Shruti curates green literature for readers of all ages, championing the idea that informed, engaged readers are essential to building a better future. With books on Delhi Metro, she brings that same love of reading into city's daily commute, turning ordinary journeys into moments of discovery and connection. By day, Shruti works as a marketing professional at an IT company, but books and stories have always been her true passion. She has spoken on this journey as a TEDx speaker, bringing back the joy of recording in public spaces. And I'm Monisha Raman, the editor of Green Literature Festival's newsletters, monthly newsletters, and the author of Highlands of Yore. So over to you, Shruti.
Thank you, Monisha. Thank you for a wonderful intro for both of us and for you as well. And Tansy, thank you for making time for this conversation. I know you are in the beautiful Ladakh region, and it kind of, relates to it because Ladakh is also a very fragile ecosystem, in itself. And your book, The Great Nicobar Journey, it also talks about Nicobar Islands, which again sits at a place where it's a threat from all the development that the government has decided. And this book I felt was right at the time when people need to know about it. There has not been much coverage on this topic, and as a reader, as well as the curator of the Earth Book Club, I am very thankful for you because you wrote this and then you're making time to also talk about this, which means that more people can get to know what went into your mind when you started writing this. And my first question, which I wanted to, ask you as a writer was, I throughout the book there was a theme of that the predators and the prey are marching together. So you would see a tiger as well as porcupine and a civet cat. All of them are together, and also on the way they are meeting new animals, and then they are joining hands with each other, and then there are humans also. So this concept of um, getting together in a difficult time is what I wanted you to talk about more about this, because what is it that you want the children to take away from this?
The lovely first question. Thank you so, so much, Shruti. So I thought about this idea of predators and prey after some conversations with some really, expert people in the field who had done studies on predators and prey. And sometimes in nature, it's very interesting, but sometimes we get this kind of relationship that can be a multi-species dependency, even from unlikely unlikely animals that we wouldn't expect to be friends. So sometimes we get cats and birds, for example, who enjoy a kind of very interesting relationship whereby a kitten will nurture some chicks of a chicken, even in a domestic setting or something. So I'm quite intrigued by how nature can take us by surprise quite often. We have these set ideas about power and weakness. And actually, nature proves time and time again that these are kind of human created structures that don't always ring true. So I wanted young people reading this idea about predators and prey having a common cause, which is their beautiful planet to save and their beautiful island to save, to kind of unpick the idea that we're not necessarily born into positions of power or weakness. These are kind of immutable places, and young people more than ever have the power to change things, and I feel make their voices heard in society. So I really, really wanted this to come through, the idea that animals also take care of each other. I've witnessed this in my very own home when my beautiful dog had to have a cesarean birth, which is very unusual for dogs, but she had delivered 9 puppies by cesarean, and she was so weak afterwards, and we just didn't know if she would be able to nurse the puppies, whether they would all die. But actually, our cat Sparkle, who was a rescued stray cat, came in and became the midwife to these babies, and she totally nurtured the puppies. She washed them, she cuddled them, and just witnessing something like in my own home before my own eyes was so beautiful and very miraculous. It really made me understand that we don't know as much as we think we do about the predator-prey relationship.
Wow, that actually gave me goosebumps listening to the story, because yes, you're actually right, because these terminologies and these stories that we make in our mind as humans, because we think of ourselves as the superior species, and we think we know everything,
Mm,
whereas it's not the case. It's not just not the case. And
mm,
thank you for sharing the Tansy. I mean, that's really
mm.
very profound. That I think that's the hook that I'll lead me to my next question also, because um in the book also you talk about how the interconnectedness of the species, how a bird is dependent on a tree for fruits and for getting shade and building a nest, and then the tree is dependent on the bird to spread their seeds, and then have more trees made up like their babies to carry on the generation. And then the porcupine, and the hathi whisperers, there's humans, there are trees, there are animals, all of them are interconnected. And it just tells the story that we are not as a species, we won't be able to survive alone if we do not take that into account. Like humans cannot survive just alone if they think that they can let go of the animals. Like even the vanishing of one species has a ripple effect, as we have seen through many extinct species. It has a ripple effect on the ecosystem.
Mm.
So, what do you think could mend that connection? Because as humans, I feel we have sort of broken or it is still at the stage of repair, but we've still very broken that relationship. And what do you think through these stories would mend this connection, both for children as well as the adults who are reading alongside these children?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, I mean, the parakeet and the tree, Xanadu plum and her ficus tree, they have a very interdependent relationship in the story. Tigress and Amelie have an interdependent connection when Amelie finds food for the tigress who's too weak to make her
Yes.
own hunt. An elephant and the elephant tribe, you know, they've all talked to each other over generations through humans learning the speech of elephants. So I do have this very strong belief that we are so interconnected with many, many species on the planet. And well, I mean, possibly all species on the planet are interconnected if we can trace all the roots back far enough. And it's wonderful, isn't it, when you step out of a kind of urban environment and into nature and you discover that these things are actually very present and real. So as you've pointed out, I'm in Ladakh and Zanskar right now, and I've been traveling with my family. My husband is from Zanskar originally, and in his village, near to his village, is a wonderful monastery called Puktal Monastery. And there we found that there was, even though the landscape is very barren, you can see in the background maybe of my camera, like it's a very kind of brown and not so many trees in Ladakh and Zanskar. But in Puktal, there are just this profusion of rose bushes everywhere. And I was like, how is it on this barren mountainside? There are so many rose bushes, wild rose bushes. Who's planted them? You know, how did they get here? And my husband said, he's a biologist and a geographer, so he knows a little bit more than I do about these things. He said that actually the choughs, who are native to that monastery, these big kind of corvine type family birds who are quite unique to that place, they are the perpetrators of the rose bushes. So they eat the rose hip seeds. They digest them, and something in their droppings fertilizes the seeds. So as long as there are choughs living in the monastery, there will always be these amazing rose bushes all around it. And that scent, you know, on the air, it's just like, it's completely magical. It makes you feel that you've stepped into another realm or something. And this is just a very normal relationship between bird and bush. And I love it because it's everywhere if we kind of can just find it.
Yes, yes, that reminds me of there's some coffee which civet poop is made of. I am, if I'm
Oh
not wrong,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
in
yeah.
Vietnam or something
Yeah,
I've heard of that, that they let the civet eat
I've heard
that
of that
that
too.
coffee, and then when it digests through that its system, that gives it that distinguishing flavor, or or that smell of that coffee. And yes, you're
Yeah.
right. That's
It's
what,
in, yeah,
we
an
need to just,
interest.
yes, the interconnectedness. Right, right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So, Tansy, my next question is about something about, related to, how do you imagine children to take action? Because although I am like huge admirer of reading stories, like I want people to read books, read stories, but I'm at an age, maybe, or you can say age factor or whatever, that now I also want to do something about the stories that I've read, like, and this particular topic, like the Nicobar project, not many adults have been able to take action on it because of how it's been treated by the government. Like they are not although we have raised concerns, environmentalists, ecologists have talked at length about how harmful it will be to the native species and the tribal people of that island, but not we have not been able to stop that. But what do you think children can do in this regard? Is it just to, plant a seed of courage in them to be able to speak like the animals in the stories are doing? Because they are doing what we should be doing. Like we should all be standing with placards in the Sansad Bhavan, protesting for this as humans. But what exactly do you have in mind for the children who are reading the stories?
Yeah, I mean, it is, as you say, it's not just about codependency or interdependence, is it? It is actually about survival. So this is really about our species surviving on planet Earth into the future, and the next generation more than ever are very conscious of this. I feel like as an educator, I talk to young people regularly, like on a daily basis, and I feel that this generation are very, very aware, probably more than I was when I was growing up. And they're conscious of the need to do something. But what is the question? And so, yes, you're quite right. We start with the story. We start with an imaginative investigation of a situation, be that on the Nicobar, or be that in Zanskar, or be that anywhere where there is kind of ecological crisis, and they are multiple and, you know, sadly, so many right now on the planet Earth. But I feel that there are many, many things that young people can do, and not just young people, all of us can do. And this is the message of the Great Nicobar journey, really, that we must band together and we must make our voices heard, not just through standing with placards, although that's a fun thing to do. Like, we all enjoy going on a protest and having a collective experience. That's amazing. But it's what goes on in the background as well, and it's the sustainability of a movement that I feel has the greatest impact. So, you know, it's not just the demonstrative moment of passion and of deep concern, but it's also the research that goes on in scientific circles, in ecological circles, in biological circles. And I do feel that although you know, you're feeling a little bit more disillusioned by the work that people do, Shruti ji, I do feel that actually there is a lot of amazing positive change happening right now on planet Earth, and there are so many powerful voices. It's not just the disempowered who are standing up and saying, listen to us. It's also some brilliant, incredible, world famous, very huge voices that we all listen to and we all follow, you know. So for example, I was thinking about who's inspired me on this journey. Pankaj Seksaria, I don't know if you've heard about his work, but he has created multiple platforms to discuss Great Nicobar and the crisis, and all sorts of different people, be they journalists, be they writers, be they activists, be they biologists, be they scientists, have really kind of contributed to the information that we are being able to understand more about Nicobar, which is so remote and so difficult to reach for an average citizen. So kind of collective bodies of people are definitely assembling, and I feel that getting together with experts to find out more about which species are particularly indigenous to Great Nicobar, for example. You know, why is Great Nicobar such a precious place? It's precious because it's this isolated environment where ecology and evolution can happen at such a high speed and much less interfered with than other places that might be have other kind of influences. So islands in themselves are unique biospheres and very, very kind of extraordinary places. I've often said about Great Nicobar and the Western Ghats, for example, and the Himalayas, you know, we in India are so lucky to have these extremely pristine, unique environments. And it's a celebration, more as much as it's a protest. It's a celebration that India, of all the places on the planet, can boast having these gorgeous places full of biodiversity, full of species, you know. So we're not just criticizing all the time, we're also celebrating the fact that we have this incredible example to the whole world of what can happen if it's allowed its wilderness space. So this is very important to me. Other people like Vaishna Roy at Frontline have absolutely championed the Great Nicobar story, and she's an example of an incredibly powerful woman in India who has taken a tale that people don't want to talk about and publicized it massively through a mainstream magazine. So, I mean, I have confidence that there are people of power who are doing great things. We have David Attenborough, of course. He's like a kind of legend in the world who completely promotes and supports young people's education in nature, really, on every curriculum that we can possibly imagine. We have His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who constantly talks about ecosystems, interdependence, the importance of compassion for all sentient beings in all realms, really. We have Vandana Shiva, who has championed the idea of seed sovereignty and crop sovereignty. So we have like amazing people to follow and to listen to and to guide. And I think young people should be confident and courageous. As you say, you know, it is a story of having, knowing that there's enough of a support network that, you know, there will be people to catch you when you make that voice known, when you have something to say, when you have a message for the environment and a project that you want to do as a young person to help support the environment, people will be there to support you as well. So I like this idea of kind of intergenerational friendship. I like the idea of a community supporting each other with a similar cause. And I think that the small things that we do, each of us individually, do absolutely add up to a great sum of positive behaviors and positive ways of life. So consciousness is important, being
Absolutely.
aware, being
Yeah.
aware, and young people are very conscious and aware, and they're also very sensitive to change and to their environments. You know, perhaps we get a little deadened as we get older, but young people especially know what feels right and what is healthy and what gives them support and sustenance. So I think that we need to follow them as well.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that. That was very insightful. Definitely, I agree with you on a lot of things. Like, you know, the current generation is definitely more uh, they have more knowledge, they are more aware, and definitely know more than I knew when I was a child, because I was definitely not reading environmental books at that time. So yeah, I think that you've partly answered my next question regarding, you know, the research and access that you used during writing of this project. But I'd still like you to answer about, because as an Indian, I've never traveled to Nicobar and not even Andaman, which is still very touristy, as I, you know, already know.
Yeah,
But like, did
yeah.
you travel to Nicobar, or what was your research and access limited to through books and your peers? And you know, you mentioned Pankaj, and I know he's doing great work there.
Yeah, yeah, it's a wonderful question. I mean, I haven't visited Nicobar and I still feel reluctant, although I'd love to go there. I feel reluctant about the ecological impact of actually going to such a remote place. You
Yes.
know, even as a one person, what impact will I have on such a fragile place? And is it really necessary for me to go there and kind of admire it? I'd love to go. Don't get me wrong, it's a big wish, but I also want it to be a more stable and a more kind of secure place that I visit. I can say similar things about Tibet. I can say similar things about lots of places on planet Earth that I'd love to see, but I feel like I need to be wary of just being another eco-tourist in a way. But
That's true.
with regard to what kind of provoked and sparked my interest in Nicobar, it was actually a very personal reaction to the articles in Frontlines magazine last March. So I was in Calm Market, I was in Delhi at that time. I worked in Haryana, and I was looking through all the different magazines on the rack, and I came across this one called Island in Peril that Frontline had published. And as I read through and discovered more and more about the species on Nicobar, the threats to the Shompen and the Nicobarese tribes people, as I read more and more, I just broke down and wept. And I remember it really clearly. I was sitting on my daughter's bed in Haryana in our flat and just crying and crying. And I just thought, I don't know what to do. I feel so helpless and I feel so saddened and in grief really about what we're doing to our planet. And then, you know, something kind of kicks in, doesn't it, in those deep moments of sorrow. And it's just not enough to sit there crying. And, you know, as terribly emotional as it felt, I kind of was provoked into coming out of my own crisis of grief and saying, I must do something. What can I do? What can I do? So, as Monisha said at the beginning, I've been writing poetry for quite a few years now. So the first instinct was just to put into poetic form my sadness for these different species that had been written about in that magazine. So I wrote a poem for each of them, and then that didn't even feel to be enough. So I started painting pictures of those different species, and as it was a kind of reaction to the magazine, I sent them to Vaishnav. I sent them to Bangaj, and I said, I just wanted to say thank you for making me aware about the situation. And these are the things, these are the creative responses that I've had to the articles in this issue. And they very kindly said, this is wonderful, and we're going to promote them and print them. And we're going to show that sometimes magazines, monthly or bi-monthly magazines have such an impact on an individual that they are prompted to do something creative with that information. So from the poetry and painting, which then spread to Green Lit Fest News and different kind of publications, this idea for a novel emerged, and I don't know exactly how it emerged, but the story came through the poems and the images that I had been working on. One of the big influences was the poet Ranjit Hoskote, who is a wonderful mentor. And I had been on the Himalayan writing retreat course with him. And he had said, you're writing wonderful odes to all these different animals and different creatures on Nicobar. But what about speaking with a first voice? What about speaking in first bird or first animal? Why don't you actually embody that poetic voice of that creature? And first of all, I was like, oh my God, that's really difficult. I'm not just kind of singing praises anymore. I'm actually going to have to go through the suffering of that creature. And that's a bit scary. So true to form, I kind of developed an enormously high fever and went into a kind of physical crisis as a direct result of having to change from second person to first person or first animal. So I burnt a high fever for several days, but then the resulting poems that came out that had changed to be the voice of the actual creatures of Nicobar felt a lot more powerful and a lot more instant and also a lot funnier, a lot more humorous as well. And I think we all love humor, but children especially respond to the kind of funny things that animals do too. So that felt like a nice way to go with a story about those creatures.
Wow, that's really interesting how you went through the process. I mean, you've really put yourself into every creature. Like it feels like, to me, it feels like you've put your soul inside those animal souls and then written the book, because you've truly felt, how they must be feeling, because letting go of their home.
And I was very lucky. I also had young editors, so I wasn't just confined to a realm of grown-ups, because I'm so lucky enough to teach young people. I put the stories through their eyes as well. I said, please look at these, please edit them. Please tell me if you would say this, if you were a young pangolin, the kind that would wear your baseball cap backwards, how would you speak? Would you talk to your friends like this? And quite often they said, no, we wouldn't say that at all. That's so outdated, ma'am. Please, can you change it to make it a bit more current? And that was very, very helpful indeed. So I was very lucky to have my daughter be an editor. Another of my pupils, who's a fantastic reader and writer, he also helped a lot. So I was really fortunate to have young people's voices kind of imbue the spirit of those animals as well.
Yes, that's wonderful. All right. And yes, this is somewhat, again, this leads to my second question, because it's about stories and art. When we talk about art, we talk about drawing, painting, and then the storytelling is also a form of art, and then there's music. But I want you to imagine that, what if someone doesn't have access to art? How do you imagine them to be connected to the land, to the people, and to the cause? Like, because beyond books, or let's just say beyond books, how do you want people to stay connected with nature?
Yeah, it's a lovely question. So I work with young people, and we often take theatre productions on tour around India, around festivals, and by and large, they happen to feature talking animals, talking birds. Even before this great Nicobar novel, most of the work was around the interconnectedness between humans and animals, strangely enough. And so I think theatre is a fabulous platform for young people to experience interactive, in particular, the kind of urgency of many causes that are happening, whether that be an almost fairy tale form of the story, or whether that be a very real current political situation that's happening that we can all recognize. I think that both the imaginative and the metaphysical or metaphorical realms and the very real are so poignantly brought alive by theatre. So,
Yes.
I've been going around India with troops of young people for probably about 5 years now, and they have been amazingly influential in the work that I have started to evolve and started to understand how powerful those art forms can be. So often in the theatres that we perform at, we invite young people who might not usually have access to theatre to come and be audience, and not just be audience, but be interactive audience. So perform with
Right.
us, come up onto the stage. I do not know how many times, Shruti, we have been told off by theatre managers and festival organizers and say, please don't invite everybody onto the stage. It's impossible. The stage is going to break, but we continue to do so because it's a very important message that we're all part of the same story, and we need to all get up onto that stage at the same time as audience, as spectator, or as performer, and work together to bring a song alive, or bring a dance alive, or a message alive. So though it's true that possibly our education system is not always as open to providing arts education for all, for example, not just in India, but in many countries in the world. I do feel that these are kind of life skills and forms of expression that we as a human species have always known and have always used as part of our survival strategy. So singing, dancing, painting. In Bhopal, where I work, I'm very close to Bhimbedka, for example, and it's amazing to see that those cave structures and those cave art and echo chambers within the caves are ancient to us, and we must have known as a species from the beginning of time that we needed to sing our song and we needed to paint our hunt or paint our ritual on the walls of caves. So we know we are deep wired to be creative and to have expression through many art forms. And I feel more strongly than ever before, actually, that these skills are actually vital to our survival as a species. We must create, we must perform, we must read, we must tell those stories again, retell those stories in many ways, and having compassion for each other. These are very much key components to our survival too. So our stories often tell tales of compassion, don't they? They tell of overcoming problems. They can tell of how working together helps solve the mystery or whatever. There are so many different ways in which our books help us as teachers as well. But that is something that is not just a past, a kind of fun thing to do when we stop doing our academics. This is actually where we can survive best, and where we can evolve the most powerfully. So I think that it's a question of evolving as a species right now through creative work and through creative arts.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yes. And I think with children, it's easier because children are inherently curious. Like, I haven't seen a child who is not curious about the bird sitting outside their window because they've never seen it. So that curiosity somehow comes in, with nature. We are inherently connected to nature when we are born, and then as we grow up, we somehow lose that connection. So just saying is right. And then even when for people of my age group or even older who are not who think of themselves as not connected to art, I think I read this beautiful article which was written by Sumana Roy, and then Neha Sinha kind of paraphrased it, and she says something on the lines that not everyone
Mm.
has access to art, but you can just go out and watch a tree, and that's art. That's right. That's art in
Yes,
your backyard.
yes,
And that
yes,
was so beautiful, because even if you don't,
absolutely.
work with, you cannot work, you don't have to touch a paintbrush, crayons, paper, a pen, a notebook, theater. You cannot do anything, but you can simply go and observe a tree. You can simply go and observe stars. You can
Yes.
simply feel that connection within you, because nature is all around you, and you just have to be that person who wants to look around. So I think that connection
I
is
was just saying
also
it's
very
also about
important.
listening,
And
having the patience to listen to the song of the wilderness
yes,
as well. And, that's a very important skill.
yes, the sound of silence, or the sound of, basically the trees hushing. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. All right. I think we are towards, we're just wrapping up the discussion. It was beautiful having this word with you. I really feel, I know you already through your book and now after chatting with you.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for that. But Tansy, I would would want to leave this conversation with one thing.
To
Who
speak to
would be
you.
your
Thank you,
spirit
Shruti.
animal from the Nicobar Island?
Oh, that's so difficult. That's the hardest question in the world. um, I mean, I have to say I identify quite strongly with Tree Shrew, because
Mhm.
she's the organizer. She's the one who kind
Yeah.
of gets everyone together. She's the one who tells everyone to go where to go. And she also is the one who has the crisis and says, "Oh my God, there's wolves all around the place we need to get to. What shall we do?" This I identify with this a lot. So I
Oh,
guess it's Tree
yes.
True, but I love all of them. And yeah, I
Yes.
hope I embody different aspects of all of them.
Yes, yes. Yeah, absolutely. True Shoe. The way you have put True Shoe in your book, I'd had a doubt that it's your favorite. So, but it's confirmed now. But thank you. Thank you for the lovely character. And by the way, I didn't knew
Thank you,
that animal
Shruti.
existed. So, I was intrigued, and now I'm reading more about True Shoe. So thank you for that as well.
Yeah, she's an amazing being.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been really lovely. Been a really lovely
Same here.
experience. And I really hope lots of young people can get on board and come on the journey too, and make their voices heard.
Thank you so much, Tansy, for writing this book, and then again for having this conversation. I hope, your book reaches far and wide through Zanskar to Nicobar, and everyone has access to it.
Thank you so much. It's amazing.
Oh,
Lovely to
thank you,
see
Shruti, for
you.
the beautiful questions. And thank you, Tansy, for taking time out for us between your quite heavy schedule and for joining us all the way from Leh and for all the beautiful answers and insights you gave us. And this will be a treasure, really. And for those of you watching this,
Great.
some of the poems Tansy mentioned about Nicobar and Island are published in our newsletter from 2024. You can have a look at it and read them on our webpage under the newsletter section. And do subscribe to our social channels, Greenlit Fest on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and YouTube. And we'll keep an eye out for more of these conversations. And we will be announcing our date shortly. And we are hoping to have these wonderful women join us for the Greenlit Fest. So, yeah, do watch out for our dates. And thank you very much, Shruti, for taking time. And Tansy, to
Yes.
you too. And this has been a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Monisha.
Thank you.
Thank you.